The last train to love. It was a cold evening in November when Ella first saw him. The city was wrapped in a foggy blanket, and the streetlights flickered like distant stars. She was running late, her breath visible in the chilly air as she hurried towards the train station. Her heart pounded in her chest not from the cold, but from the fear of missing the last train. The station was almost deserted. A few scattered souls stood on the platform, their faces buried in scarves. Hands shoved deep into coat pockets. Ella glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 11:45 p.m. The train was due in 5 minutes. She found a bench and sat down, her eyes scanning the platform. That's when she noticed him, a man, about her age, standing alone by the edge of the platform. He was tall, with a messy mop of dark hair peeking out from under a woolen hat. He wore a long coat that looked a size too big for him, and his shoes were scuffed, as if he had walked many miles in them. There was something about him that caught Ella's attention. Maybe it was the way he stood, slightly hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. Or perhaps it was the look. In his eyes, a mix of sadness and longing that mirrored how she often felt. She found herself staring, trying to figure out his story. The train arrived, its brakes hissing as it came to a stop. The doors slid open with a soft chime, and Ella stood up, hesitating for a moment before stepping inside. To her surprise, the man followed her, taking a seat across the aisle. The carriage was almost empty, just a few late-night travelers nodding off to sleep. Ella settled into her seat and pulled out a book from her bag, but she couldn't focus on the words. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the man sitting across from her. He was looking out the window, his face reflected in the glass. He seemed lost in thought, as if the passing scenery held the answers to all his troubles. As the train rumbled on, Ella found herself stealing glances at him. There was something familiar about him, something that made her feel as if they had met before. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't place him. After a while, the man turned his head and their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them looked away. It was as if time had slowed down. The world outside fading into the background. Ella felt her heart skip a beat, a rush of warmth spreading through her chest. He smiled, a small, hesitant smile that seemed almost out of place on his somber face. Ella smiled back, feeling a strange sense of connection. It was as if they were two lost souls who had found each other in the most unlikely of places. The train continued its journey, the rhythmic clatter of the tracks filling the silence between them. After what felt like an eternity, the man stood up and walked over to Ella. He hesitated for a moment before speaking, his voice low and soft. "Is this seat taken?" Ella shook her head, her heart beating faster as he sat down beside her. He was even closer now, and she could see the faint lines of worry etched on his face. "I'm Daniel," he said, holding out his hand. "Ella," she replied, taking his hand in hers. His grip was warm, his touch comforting. For the next hour, they talked. It started with small talk, where they were from, what they did for a living. But soon, the conversation deepened, and they found themselves sharing their fears, their dreams, their regrets. Ella learned that Daniel was an artist, struggling to find inspiration. He told her about the painting he had been working on for months, a piece that seemed to be missing something essential. "I keep staring at it," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "But I can't figure out what's wrong. It's like there's a void I can't fill." Ella listened, her heart aching for him. She understood what it was like to feel lost, to search for something that seemed just out of reach. She told him about her own struggles, her job at a publishing house that left her feeling empty, the dreams she had given up on. As they talked, Ella felt a connection growing between them, something deep and unspoken. It was as if they had known each other for years, their souls recognizing each other in a way that words could not explain. The train ride seemed to fly by, and before they knew it, they were nearing the end of the line. Ella felt a pang of sadness at the thought of saying goodbye. She didn't want the night to end, didn't want to lose this newfound connection. As the train pulled into the station, Daniel turned to her, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "Ella," he said, his voice steady, "I don't want this to be the last time we meet. Will you come with me? Let's see where this goes." Ella hesitated for a moment, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. She barely knew him, yet there was something in his eyes, in the way he spoke, that made her believe in the possibility of something more. The possibility of love. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before her. But then she thought about the emptiness she had been feeling, the longing for something real, something that mattered. And she knew, deep down, that this was her chance. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'll come with you." Daniel's face lit up with a smile, a genuine, heartfelt smile that made Ella's heart soar. He took her hand, and together, they stepped off the train into the unknown. As they walked out of the station, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Ella felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know what the future held. But she knew one thing for certain, she had found something special, something worth holding onto. And as they disappeared into the night, hand in hand, Ella realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters could lead to the most beautiful beginnings.